Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our guest in studio is Miss Dawnn Karen. She is based out of New York, and she is a pioneering factor in a brand new global field known as fashion psychology. Dawnn specializes in styling from the inside out by bridging the gap between perception and reality. At her Fashion Psychology Success, it's her company that offers professional services, and she's here today to talk about some of those services as a fashion psychologist. How are you this afternoon, Dawnn?
Hi, I'm doing very, very great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for lending us some of your time.
Yes.
As a fashion psychologist, let our listeners know what fashion psychology is so that we can, maybe clear up some misconceptions that we have, at least about the word fashion and as it's applied to psychology.
Yes. So I define fashion psychology as the study of color, image, style, and fashion, how it affects human behavior while addressing cultural norms and cultural sensitivities.
You say that you specialize in designing or styling people from the inside out. So we're not just talking about just the clothes that we're wearing. You're also helping us out with how we wear those clothes and why we wear those clothes. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So talk about the Fashion Psychology Institute, where you teach some of your concepts and theories, and also talk about fashion psychology success.
Yes, so Fashion Psychology Institute, it's an online institution, simply because I've had several prospective students ask me, how can I become a fashion psychologist? And although I'm a professor and I teach fashion psychology at the Fashion Institute of Technology, sometimes students, they can't afford to come to New York and study at this school. So, like I said, I created the Fashion Psychology Institute, and everything's online. So it's pretty feasible, and I think it's forward thinking. And then Fashion Psychology Success is a consultancy. I choose to say consultancy over practice just because I'm trained in counseling and I've pioneered a field. I'm not licensed in counseling. So again, I've gotten my degrees from Columbia University in counseling psychology. And Fashion Psychology Success, I've worked with clients on relationships, as far as like traveling, as far as relationships, I'll more so talk about an interview that I did with the Wall Street Journal, and I had a client where the boyfriend began to get buff and get toned, and he changed his appearance drastically from when they were an item, and the lady felt somewhat insecure with this change, and I worked with them on how to make her feel more secure in the relationship, with, this change. And that's an example of how fashion psychology could be used. What I do as far as fashion psychology success, as far as another service is concerned, international traveling. So a lot of people, when they travel, I found out, because I was stationed in the Middle East, that a lot of foreigners don't know what to wear. They may disrespect the culture by wearing some shorter attire, and maybe they don't care because they're visiting. But my thing is to seemingly help them respect the culture. So what do you wear? What are some manners or some behaviors, what's appropriate for the culture, without, you don't want to shame yourself or be disrespectful. So
now you've been traveling to quite a few foreign countries. You gave an example of a relationship issue where one partner was taking on this, I guess, for lack of a better term, positive change, while the other partner either began to become negative in appearance or remained the same. At any rate, there was insecurity involved on one of the partner's part. When you're in other countries, do you find that there is more focus on cultural issues as they pertain to what a person wears, when and why, or more personal, people trying to land that job or be better in that career, or, as you say, be better in a personal relationship when it comes to traveling abroad?
Yeah, so what I found out more so in the Western world, it's all about the individual, and the Eastern part of the world, it's more about the collective. So you'll find, like if I was stationed in Kuwait. For instance, there was, I don't want to say necessarily an issue, but just a concern with, the client wanted to dress more Western, because all of the stores that we have here are there. So it's not any different, but still she wanted to remain true to her culture. And how do you navigate that? How do you do that? Does that mean when you're in your country, you wear your hijab or your abaya, and then when you travel to, I don't know, London, you wear more Western dress and you take the abaya off. How do you navigate that? So, like I said, in the Eastern part of the world, it's more of collective issues. Rather, in the Western part of the world, it's more personal. How do you land that job? So yeah, that's why I added the component, instead of just saying how color, image, style, fashion affects human behavior, but we add this cultural piece of it. Seemingly because when I was traveling, how people express their fashion is very different from culture to culture, and it would be very naive of me, or very vain of me, or to think, presumptuous to think that, American or Western ways apply to every country. So at Columbia, as far as my counseling psychology training is concerned, we actually really separated just from each culture. Okay, how does this culture think about psychology? How does that culture think about psychology? And what does that look like? So that's a part of my training, and I just brought it to the field of fashion psychology.
I'm sure you're aware, an absolutely huge industry known as the fashion industry. How much does design play a part when you are developing theories, or breaking theories down, maybe shattering some misconceptions about fashion and the design of fashion? I've seen some runway activity, and sometimes it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah. You quoted, I style from the inside out. There's other piece to this motto or quote: styling from the inside out by bridging the gap between perception and reality. So what I do is, okay, when you see the fashion industry or down the runway, there may be some things that you will not be caught dead in. And it's really more so of an individual basis, individual preference, where you're going, who you're going with. Do you have enough confidence to wear that, to deal with one's perception of you, that they may be staring because maybe you have a big bird costume on? I don't know, it's your reality. So can you actually uphold that? So that's that bridging the gap between perception and reality piece. So the fashion industry, it really determines trends, but also with a little bit of consumer psychology, we determine trends as well. Because if you see something and you like it, and several people take hold of it, it's seemingly a trend, and that maybe that trend was not predicted by the fashion industry. So what I teach in fashion psychology is not only that the designer has say so, the power, but also the consumer has the power as well.
Talk about your web presence, Fashion Psychology Success. When we visit that website, fashionpsychologysuccess.com, what would we expect to find there? Blogs, tips, tricks, photos, what?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of photos, and I have live events, because I do a lot of speaking engagements, workshops. I've recently done something for Fashion Week at the Empire State Building. So I do fashion psychology workshops for different industries, corporate, if it's about relationships. So I do that a lot. So you'll find that. You'll find my fashion psychology and student fashion psychology success does have a charitable foundation that we support children in Jamaica. So we have that. You'll also find more about me. Like I said, I am a Columbia graduate. You will also find my media interviews. So almost, probably with minus about 5 media interviews, but almost every interview I've done in every country is posted on the site, and you'll see different commentary, that I use, different relationships, jobs, anything you can think of that I can apply fashion psychology to. I even did an interview on Swarovski crystals. So, so that's what basically you'll find on the site, and just photos of me, So it's yeah.
Great. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. It's been a pleasure talking with Dawnn Karen this afternoon in studio, fashion psychologist, and actually the pioneering mind behind the field of fashion psychology, a truly global field, as she's has a presence in Kuwait, Thailand, Malaysia, and many other places, as well as here in the United States. Also having opened the Fashion Psychology Institute, where her theories and her techniques are afforded to students who wish to become fashion psychologists. And we've been here also talking about fashion psychology success, Dawnn's business, where she offers professional services as a fashion psychologist, and the types of services that she's offering can be used by anyone. It's been great having you here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm. And you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.